Hello and welcome into this Golf Channel podcast with Rex and Lav. That's right, a new name, but the same great analysis and, of course, some weird tangents as well. Coming soon, folks, we're going to have some custom graphics, hopefully showing me way more handsome than Rex, but we are going to be a little bit more visible this year, more spots on social, more time on YouTube, more of us at the major championships. We are definitely looking forward to bringing it all to you in 2023. Now, in this week's episode, we'll be talking to lid lifter at Kapalua, of course, as well as some big picture predictions for the year ahead in golf, and definitely we'll be talking some barbecue. And Rex, I know you see it, Georgia. We're definitely talking Georgia. If you are not watching us on YouTube, yes, folks, this is a DeAndre Swift jersey that I am sporting. Rex, Happy New Year. Where's your mind at as we kick it off to do it all over again?
Clearly the Bulldogs. Clearly that's what I've spent the last 2 days thinking about, pining about, thinking, can they actually beat TCU? Because I'm not 100% sure they can. And that is
13-point favorites.
I know. I don't gamble. I'm not very good at it. I don't like to lose money. However, in that particular case, how would anyone not be like, I don't see that. Not after watching what TCU did. To Michigan. And look, you can say whatever you want about Michigan.
Everyone thought Michigan was going to blow them out.
I know. Michigan was going to Michigan them. They were going to be stronger. They were going to be bigger. They were going to be faster. None of that happened. Watching TCU against Michigan and then watching how much Georgia struggled against host Ohio State, that, my friend, you wearing the jersey after the semifinal game is a dangerous game.
It is a dangerous game. And look, we're potentially in uncharted territory, certainly for Georgia. There's only been a handful of teams that have gone back-to-back over the last 30 years. Alabama did it about a dozen or so years ago, famous USC teams. And then Nebraska in the mid-'90s are the only back-to-back schools. So, Rex, do you think Georgia would actually replace Alabama as the preeminent team in college football? Because that'd be very exciting after suffering through some very lean times, particularly when I was in school.
I've noticed that Georgia fans have become sort of the Boston Red Sox fans because Boston Red Sox fans went from long-suffering to
just without the bad accent,
insufferable in one World Series, and it seems to me that's what's happening here with the Georgia folk. And look, I think I sent you a text. Good luck to all my Georgia friends out there.
Nope, never got that.
I like the team.
Never got it.
I believe I was on
It's been stuck in your outbox.
Yes, maybe that was it. I was with you right up until the point that you have now become too much. You and the rest of the Georgia folks. So, and look, I don't have a dog in this fight.
This is what I always did. Even when Mark Richt was the head coach and we were losing 4 or 5 games or 1 or 2 games, and they just happened to be the biggest games of the year that Georgia would lose. I've always been this obnoxious. I've always had this much memorabilia in my backdrop. I've always had the flag.
That's true.
Out front. I've always had a sign. It's the only thing I wear besides the Golf Channel FootJoy polos. That's all I wear, and now I can just wear it with a little bit more pride.
You should. I'm not even trying to steal that from you. I'm from a fan's point of view. From that day,
as I drink from my Yeti with the Georgia logo.
Another very unhumble brag. You're just going to keep dragging out. And let me guess, is there a hat somewhere on that desk that you're going to pull up at some point during this conversation?
It's actually on the kitchen island. But I do have my Kirby Smart Georgia visor right over
there.
Right
it
over
is,
here, just out of arm's reach.
Look, I'm just warning you. I could care less how obnoxious you are because this is just the way you've always been. So this is nothing new to me. I'm warning you that this is a very dangerous game for you just to be so blatant about. Oh yes, of course we're going to be TCU.
No, I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm celebrating the fact that Georgia's in the national championship. I think containing Max Duggan is going to be an absolute chore, just as Michigan found out in the semifinal game. He's clearly a force to be reckoned with. They have very good receivers on the outside. In fact, I can't wait to draft Johnston in my fantasy football draft in fall 2023. I'm just saying it is an incredible accomplishment to reach back-to-back title games. And Stetson Bennett, win or lose, will go down as one of the most unlikely heroes in college football history. I think that is very much a given.
I thought the best line. I'll agree with you. It's hard. Look, this is what we do in golf, right?
He's a former walk-on, Rex. A former walk-on.
It's impressive, actually. But I'll go back to your team.
He's like my size.
I heard one of the funniest lines last night on a podcast. It was Mike Golick Jr. And he made the line about he played the first half I'm talking about your guy, Stetson Bennett. He played the first half like Stetson, and he played the second half like SB4. And I was like, oh, that's a good line. Like I can see where he's coming from on that one. That was good.
Yep, that sounds just about right. We'll definitely have some more analysis next week.
What's Stetson Bennett going to be doing a year from now? Is he going to be a grad assistant, or will he have already opened up the car dealership in Athens?
I think he'll be the ceremonial starter at the Masters tournament. I think they'll find us. I think they'll find a spot for him. Now that Phil Mickelson blew his spot of being a ceremonial starter one day, that spot will be reserved.
He and Ugga
for Stetson Bennett. Yeah, I'll get like 79 at that point. But definitely more Georgia talk next week on the pod, and potentially at the end of this podcast as well. Rex, you do know the PGA Tour season is getting underway this week. The Century Tournament of Champions is this week. 17 of the top 20 players in the world are teeing it up on Maui, the Plantation course at Kapalua. So that's no Rory McIlroy. He's taking his usual longer winter break. You don't have Shane Lowry, who will play in a couple weeks' time at the Hero Cup, which is kind of that Ryder Cup test run for European captain Luke Donald. And of course, Rex, we don't have Cameron Smith, the defending champion at Kapalua, a year after his record-breaking 34 under par performance, was still a month and a half away from teeing it up on the Live Golf Tour. And so overall, it's 39 players who will be making the first start of 2023. John Rahm, the betting favorite. Those of you who are interested in that, you and I, Rex, are not. But Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, also in action. So before we zoom out, right, with these big picture ideas and conversations, what are you most looking forward to seeing this week at Kapalua?
You know what I'd love to see this week? Is whatever we're going to do with these microphones.
Yep. Would love just a mic stand.
Like, literally, I'm having to stretch
a $10 one, a $30 one, $50 one. I mean, if we could be so bold to ask for the $100 one with the crane arm, so it's like out of sight, but it actually like looks good, so it'd be like this, like everyone else's pod mic. Like,
I mean,
love that. Would absolutely love that.
And I'm not trying to be overly. Look, they got us the new mics, and they're very, very good. We appreciate them. But I don't want to complain too much. But I'm literally getting cramps in my hand.
Carpal tunnel.
Kind of.
No
yeah,
doubt.
I'm having to sit here and hold this mic, which is not light, by the way. I mean, it's a
pretty
meaty mic.
Heavy duty. This is why our sound is so good.
And you have not pointed out the fact that I'm doing this podcast for the first time from my office because I got, for Christmas, Santa Claus brought me like a Wi-Fi booster thing that I was able to put Santa Claus.
And a TV that you definitely didn't ask for.
And a TV that I didn't ask for. You know what he didn't bring me? A Blackstone.
But the monk may definitely ask for the TV, and she just happened to
gift
herself a TV for you.
TV for our bedroom, which I'm thinking.
But I want one.
But I don't want it. I want the Blackstone. It's not in a mic stand. That's it. To your point, I'm fascinated by this. I hadn't even thought about the Cam Smith thing. That's a really good point. Like, it seems to me that my mind has moved on so much from Live Golf and all the ramifications that's going to bring. I was more interested as the first designated event. Like in going into this year.
Yes, it's no longer elevated, folks. It is designated.
That was a mandate. Did you get that email?
Got that email. It was all caps. One of those.
That sounds like a stop sign
points.
You're going to run through. This is going to be PGA Tour champions all over again, isn't it?
Senior Tour elevated event. I would think that verbiage is coming directly from the PGA Tour. It doesn't want it to seem like the Century Tournament champions is above, say, the Valspar Championship, and except in every way, from field to purse to position on the calendar. Like it's definitely elevated. Like let's just call it what it is.
And you pointed out how good the field is. I mean, to that point, this is what we've kind of come to expect. Now, there's going to be some outliers, and I'm really, really curious to see how this transpires as we go further and further into the season, because each of these top designated players, don't even want to call them designated players, each one of these top players, these star players, as we've sort of identified through the PIP.
Top players in designated events.
These players get one off, and I'm really they can take one of these designated events off, and I'm really, really curious. I talked to a couple players in the Bahamas at Tiger's event about the idea of how this is going to work out, and it looks like it's almost like a hierarchy. Like I asked Jordan Spieth, like, what are you thinking of skipping, and he said Wells Fargo, and just because of scheduling wise, I mean, everyone loves
Texas
Wells Fargo.
Events. Yeah.
Because of the Texas events. Absolutely. He wants to play the Byron. He wants to play Colonial. And it's right in the middle of the PGA Championship. I think it would have been 4 or 5 weeks in a row if he adds the Wells Fargo to that. But then I talked to 3 or 4 other of these top players as we identify them through the PIP, and they also want to take Wells Fargo off. And so my comment was, like, how is the tour going to decide who's going to be in these fields, who's going to be out of these fields? And there is some sort of formula. We can talk about it at a later date. But this is interesting to me because what the tour is trying to do, what the top players, led by Rory and Tiger, are trying to do is to get all of the best players together more often at these bigger events with the bigger purses and eventually probably no cuts. That's what we have. That's exactly what we have this week. And I think you might have written this last year, that what this tournament has become is probably going to be the standard, at least the way the tour envisions it going forward.
Yeah, I mean, 39 players is probably not quite what the tour has in mind. I think it's more like the BMW Championship model. We look at
70, 78
players, no cuts. Guaranteed paydays for everyone in the field. I definitely think we're moving in that direction, certainly in 2024 when there's a little bit more collaboration too with the DP World Tour. You do make an interesting point. Every one of these top players is allowed one event. I believe if they want to skip more than that, it'll just be a prorated amount from their PIP total, which is interesting because when it comes to a player like Patrick Cantlay, right? So Patrick Cantlay was not in the inaugural PIP despite being the PGA Tour Player of the Year and FedEx Cup champion in 2021. He barely cracks the top 20 in the second year of the PIP. Is he just going to say, all right, I'm going to get, $2 million for finishing 18th or 19th in the PIP? To me, resting, this is Patrick Cantlay talking, if he wants to skip Wells Fargo, if he wants to not play the Heritage the week after the Masters, if he doesn't want to play the Travelers Championship after the U.S. Open in L.A. and fly all the way across the country, is he just going to shrug his shoulders and be like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to perform my best. His thinking being, okay, if I can preserve my body, work on my game a little bit more away from tournament action, I will have a more successful season than if I actually play all but one of these, as I am mandated to do as one of the top players, and just kind of screw the PIP money. So I'm very curious to see each player's strategy. We won't have a definitive answer on that, of course, until about 8 months' time. Now, Rex, one of those players who did crack the top 10 and received quite a significant PIP bonus, who I'm very much looking forward to seeing this week at Kapalua, is Will Zalatoris. In fact, we haven't seen him since the second round of the BMW Championship. That was a week, just 1 week after his breakthrough win in Memphis at the FedEx St. Jude Championship. It was kind of that long-awaited victory, and literally like 6 days later, he had 2 stress fractures in his back, and he has been on the shelf ever since. Think about all that he lost with that very ill-timed, unfortunate injury. Potentially $17.5 million. He was then first in the FedEx Cup standings, which would have been an $18 million payout. Ended up dropping all the way to 30th because he was unable to play the playoffs in a meager $500,000. He was surely, if not automatically qualified, was going to be a definite pick for the U.S. President's Cup team. That would have been his first Cup appearance. He could have won the race to Dubai on the DP World Tour. He could have had more experience and exposure at Tiger's event. And so talking to Will and a member of his team just a couple of weeks ago, they mentioned how proud they were of Will's patience during this period. It was expected that he was going to make his first appearance at the Hero World Challenge, ended up delaying it to make sure that he was 100% ready to go for the 2020 season opener at Kapalua. And so a member of his team said he might be a little bit rusty these first couple starts of the year, but, quote, watch out. I tend to agree. I think Will Zalatoris is primed for a monster 2023 on the heels of his breakout win.
We're going to do the punch shots, right?
Yep,
we're going to get to him.
We're going to do those at the end.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and jump early on this one. For the PGA Championship, I picked Will Zalatoris to win for a number of reasons. One, I mean, he lost a playoff to Justin Thomas, and I can imagine those two coming down to a playoff again at Oak Hill later this summer. But I think the other thing here is it's probably going to take him a couple events to play his way back into form. I mean, you're talking about a guy, if you look at just the way he played his way onto the PGA Tour when there really wasn't any way to play your way onto the PGA Tour, he's a bit of a road warrior. So I think he probably needs a couple events under his belt. But I can imagine by the time we get to the Masters, and certainly by the time you get to the PGA Championship, he's going to be back 100%. That being said, as long as his back is fine. I mean, I will say...
Apparently in the best shape of his life.
Well, and that's what you hope, because he is a singular talent. I mean, if you combine just his skill, what we've seen on the golf course, his resilience, we've seen it time and time again where he came close twice last year, both at the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open. And he never sort of had that devastated look on his face. I think both of us sort of were watching the different body language at the PGA Championship between he and Mito Pereira, where Mito, you could tell, like that hurt. It felt like, man, I let that one get away from me. You probably did. But with Will, it almost felt like it was just another step, that he was just taking another step towards that ultimate goal, which is win a major championship. And as long as he's healthy, and that's good news to hear that he is in the best shape of his life, and it's also good to hear, you're right, that's probably the hardest part for a young player to do, is not to come back too soon. I think the line is no one's ever come back too late from an injury, and it sounds to me like he sort of adhered to that, which is a good idea.
Yeah, especially since it's back-to-back years that have been affected now with back injuries with Will Zalatoris. 2021, he tweaked his back. Remember hacking out of the hay at Royal St. George in the Open Championship when he was inside the top 10. Had to withdraw there. It kind of affected him the fall. He actually could have made that Ryder Cup team had he been able to push forward. And then, of course, 2 herniated discs coming on the heels of the BMW Championship. I honestly think Will Zalatoris is like a superstar in the making. He clearly resonates with golf fans, so that's one part. But you look at his skill set, you look at his makeup competitively. He seems like the hybrid of a lot of the great players that we see. Like, I think he has the golf IQ and the smarts and the imagination like a Jordan Spieth. I think he has a tenacity and hunger of a Justin Thomas. I think he has the preeminent iron play of a Colin Morikawa, and he's still young. I mean, he's 25 years old. He has so much runway ahead of him. So I'm hopeful that 2023 is the year that it all comes together in a big way. And I'm with you. Fingers crossed that he can get through a year unscathed with his back.
Is Willie Z your player of the year? Is that what I'm picking up on?
Nope. He is not my player of the year because I'm also gung-ho on a bunch of these guys, and it should also be noted, Rex, that I've never correctly predicted a player of the year. We're going to get.
Who'd you pick last year? Who'd you pick in 22?
It was Colin Morikawa of my player of the year in 2022. Literally did not win. Literally did not win in 2022. Amazing.
I don't think either one of us picked Scotty Scheffler. I can guarantee you that.
No, but you did predict that he would have a breakout year. So tip of the cap that you are currently wearing. For Scotty Scheffler. Scotty is going to be in the field this week. A couple other headliners, Rex. John Rahm, 7 of his last 8 starts to end 2022, went for top 10s, including the win at the DP World Tour Championship. It seemed like a little bit of a down year, right, for John Rahm, and yet all he did was win 3 times. I think more settled this year. He had a second kid. He moved. He clearly the major performances that he had were an aberration, never going for a top 10. That is not going to happen in 2023. I'm also curious to see Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. Those are 2 players, Rex, who did not have much of an off season. It seems like we've seen them plenty of late. JT got married, of course, but he also played in the Hero. He also played in the Match. He also played in the PNC Championship. So, with all these designated events, these top players are going to have to play, crammed into this 8-month period, culminating with the Tour Championship and the FedEx Cup playoffs, and then a month later you have the Ryder Cup. You just wonder if they're going to be able to reset as well as you would hope. I also know you have your eye on Tony Finau. There's a sausage finger. Go ahead.
Yes. To your point, and John Rahm probably said this best, and when you sit down and actually do the math, John Rahm did not like the idea that he has to add events that he may not normally play. It's not much. It might be 1 or 2 extra events per player. And as you pointed out, they can take one off. They get one freebie, and however the tour is going to figure that one out. And if they wanted to, they can take 2 off or 3 off. They're just going to lose whatever proportion amount of the pit money that they wanted. And I think when you're talking about a player like a Jordan Spieth or a Justin Thomas or a John Rahm, if it's going to cost them, I don't know, I'm throwing a number out there, I'm not good at this, but $200,000, $300,000, $500,000, whatever the case may be, to get an extra week of rest back home. I know that sounds ridiculous to people.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's going to be
probably going to offer
prorated pit money. Like if you can better preserve your body for what is now definitely a sprint as opposed to a marathon in the PGA Tour season, like you're going to do that calculus and you're going to say, yeah, I think I'd rather have the rest than play it up and potentially, I don't know, risk injury or get and develop some bad swing habits, like whatever the case may be. They're going to make that calculus and make that decision.
When I sat down and do the punch shots, and we do these at the beginning of every year, so it's usually the first week of January is when we send them out, and it's all the normal stuff. Who will be the player of the year, and who will be the biggest surprise, good or bad. I sat down yesterday, and I waited until the very last day, by the way, in case you're shocked by that. When I sat down on deadline, when I sat down to do this yesterday, like I wanted to do like the thing I wanted to do. I didn't want to do player of the year is going to be Rory McIlroy or Scotty Scheffler. Like that to me,
that's literally the question, though.
That is the question. My player of the year is Tony Finau, and I think actually I said this a few weeks ago. When you look, I don't think anybody.
Months ago, in fact.
Yeah, I don't think anybody played better than Tony in the fall. Now, I did point out, and I kind of wanted to elaborate on this, but these punch shots are very, very quick. I did want to point out that his major record needs to improve. That he needs to be better in the biggest.
He's got top fives in every major championship. He's one of the few players who can actually have that on his resume.
But that was 3 years ago. If you look at kind of what he did last year, he was never really in the hunt at any of the four majors in 2022. And I'm not saying he can't be. I mean, he's certainly close enough that I don't think it's going to be a huge step for him to do that. But if you look at the way he finished up last season, and you look at just the potential that he brings, we have seen his game sort of evolve into whatever weaknesses there might have been there before. It seems like he's only getting better and better. I feel like he's the guy that takes the next step.
I would agree with you there. I think his career best world ranking is 9th. It feels like a guy who's going to smash that. He begins 2023 at 12 in the world. Ended the year with 3 wins in his last 8 starts. His putting still scares me a little bit, but I think the strides that he's been able to make with swing coach Boyd Summerhays, he's got his swing in a place now where he kind of harnesses that power, but he can unleash it when he needs to. His wedge play has certainly been short up. That was the big evolution that we saw with Rory McIlroy in 2022. He was one of the worst wedge players on the PGA Tour heading into the Wells Fargo Championship in May. From that point forward, no one was better on tour from 50 to 125 yards than Rory McIlroy. I kind of see Tony Finau not potentially making that big of an exponential leap, but certainly he has the goods to play well in every major championship. If you do think, Rex, he takes that next step, which major do you think is most conducive for his skill set?
I think all of them have. If you sort of look at what he's done over the course of his career, it seems to me that he always puts himself close, and it doesn't really matter which major it would be. If I had to pick, he seems like a U.S. Open guy. If I had to really, and we don't know a lot about LACC.
Scrambling good enough to win a U.S. Open?
Don't know. I think I'm looking just ball striking wise, and we don't know enough. And we got into this in the punch shots as well. I don't know enough about the North Course at LACC, and I've been told nothing but great things. But it's such an unknown commodity. We haven't even played a tour event there, so you just don't know what it's going to be like. I can see him playing very, very well at a place like that. Certainly Oak Hill at the PGA Championship, and he's played well at the Masters. So I don't know if there's any one of the 4 that I would say he can't win. If I'm leaning towards a direction, it's probably going to be Oak Hill or LA North.
Yeah, gun to head, I would say PGA Championship is Tony Finau's best bet to win a major in 2023. A couple other players that we want to spotlight for this week. Xander Schauffele, 4 straight top 10s to close out the year. Tom Kim, of course, looks like a rising star on the PGA Tour. 2 wins, first player since Tiger Woods to win twice for the age of 21. I'm also the player that Tom Kim beat in Vegas to get that second PGA Tour title is Patrick Cantlay. Have not seen him since then. Performed very well at the President's Cup and then backed it up with that 72nd hole collapse in Vegas. This is kind of what Patrick Cantlay does. He goes dark for a couple months at a time. He is giving a press conference on Tuesday at Kapalua. So as always, I'll be curious to see what Patrick Cantlay is up to, what he thinks of this schedule, because he will be understandably different than most of the other players. I know you had some questions, Mark, about Colin Morikawa too. Rex, he was a player I believe you said would drop outside the top 25. I believe that was your bold. Was that your bold prediction at least a couple months ago? You even said it on air, which was shocking because that will live forever.
Sounds like something I would say. Which
sure.
There is some irony because I actually picked him to win the Open Championship. I keep jumping ahead to all the different punch.
Wow! So he's going to win a major, but he's going to drop 16 places in the world ranking. That's amazing.
Well, as we went down the major championships,
he must literally do nothing else.
He does nothing else. There is sort of a disconnect there. I'll give you that. But as we went through the year's 4 majors.
There's a disconnect, although also known as that doesn't make literally any sense.
Well, but that's the thing. If I can just keep throwing different takes out there, eventually I'm going to land one. Right? Like eventually, if you just keep.
Where's cold takes exposed? Who do you did?
I mean, that seems to be a good formula. But when you look at the Open, going back to rural Liverpool, I kind of wrote that, I mean, sentimentally, I'd love for Tiger Woods to sort of find, lightning in a bottle and do what he did in '06, which it's textbook. It ain't going to happen. I mean, look, we all know. I watched him limp around the Ritz course during the PNC. I think Colin Morikawa actually is a good pick if we get those similar conditions. He's done it before. He's won the Open in very, very similar conditions before. And his ball striking is still among the game's best. You talked about Tony's putting, though. I mean, I still have a huge question mark when it comes to Morikawa's putting.
Yeah, I mean, he keeps switching grips. He keeps switching techniques. I mean, there's certainly some question marks when it goes there. We've seen, I mean, Kyle Morikawa, by any statistical measure, is not a good putter week in and week out on the PGA Tour, and yet he seems to rise to the occasion and has won 2 majors during weeks when he was top 5 in putting that particular week. So he can get it done, but consistency-wise, yeah, he's always going to struggle on the greens. It's still plenty good enough to win 2 or 3 times. And so you heard it here first, folks. Kyle Morikawa, who begins 2023 at 11 in the world. He's going to drop outside the top 25 per Rex Hoggard, but he's also going to win a major championship per Rex Hoggard.
I have to go back and check the tape on that.
He's just going to finish like 18th in the world. He's just going to drop. We're just like split the difference. Who knows?
I feel like we need to go check the tape on that drop out of the top 25. I don't know that I said that. That doesn't sound
definitely said that for a Golf Today hit. I'd be more than happy to queue up that footage.
Rex, it wasn't even on the pod. I said it on Golf Today. Well, it doesn't count.
It was a Golf Today hit, which re-aired like 7 different times.
I mean, I might have tweeted it. I might have.
It was definitely on YouTube. It was on the website. It's been circulating among Colin Morikawa's friends and family for the past couple of months. So we'll have to see how
comes
that
at you fast, man. I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes you say things because it just comes at you fast.
Trust me. I know better than most. I do not know what is coming out of my mouth at any given moment. You've teased this, right? You've teased this long enough. Up today. Today is Tuesday on golfchannel.com is our punch shot. So there's 2 different ones. There's predictions for the PGA Tour season, and then on Wednesday, January 4th, it is our predictions for each of the major championship winners on the men's side. And so you've teased this long enough. Tony Finau is your player of the year. Quick synopsis why.
Well, I just went through all the things. When you look at the way he finished up in the fall, you pointed out he won 3 of his last, 8 events to finish out 2022. I just think he continues to make those steps in the right direction. And I guess on some level, had I been paying attention, could have probably seen it with Scottie Scheffler as well, because it was a very, very similar finish to 2021 for Scottie as it was for Tony in 2022. And we all know now what Scottie was able to do going into the Masters, and he had that great spring, and that rode him to being the player of the year. I can imagine very, very easily a similar scenario with Tony.
I can as well. Certainly seems like a player at age 33 who is coming very much into his own, and he's always lacked like the killer instinct and just the wins on the resume. And I think this stretch that he has enjoyed basically since the playoff opener at the 2021 FedEx Cup playoffs has just imbued him with so much confidence, so much self-belief that he can win in different ways on the PGA Tours against the very best fields. And so I'm with you. I think Tony Finau, man, if he's not the player of the year, I would be shocked if he does take a step back in 2023. Now, Rex, my player of the year and a player who I've been touting basically for the last 5 years is Xander Schauffele, but I do believe the time is finally now for X. Won 2 times in 2022, and I think it was important because he erased some bad memories with some 54-hole leads that he's lost, but also boosted his confidence that he can win in different ways. He was certainly the beneficiary of Sahith Theegala's collapse 72nd hole at the Travelers Championship, a tournament that you just watched for the first time a couple of days ago.
Good finish. How come we didn't talk about that?
And then Xander Schauffele, the 54-hole leader at the Scottish Open, a tournament that you were the on-course reporter for, won from ahead. And so that was really important for his psyche, a player who is, I think, established himself as one of the game's most feared closers when he is coming from behind, hunting down the leader, but winning from ahead as he did at the Scottish Open. I think when you couple that surging self-belief with the all-around completeness of his game, he's the player, to me, like Scottie Scheffler, who will take the next step in his game in 2023.
I mean, you're just going to keep doing this until Xander does it. And I agree with you. Eventually, Xander's going to do it because eventually he's going to put it together in a major. And he's going to
for a major in the last 3 or 4 years, every time.
And you're going to continue to do that.
It's going to happen.
I can see the way that worked out. All right, who's the biggest surprise, good or bad for you?
So I did not go with a player. I kind of went with a theme. And to me, and I think we actually disagree on this a little bit. I think 2023 will be a decidedly less contentious year. Now, I think in some ways this is probably going to be obvious because it really can't get more acrimonious than it was in 2022. And there's still like some outstanding issues that need to be settled, whether it's the court case, first the DP World Tour in February, or in the PGA Tour's antitrust lawsuit case is currently slated, potentially getting pushed back January 2024. But you have like the official World Golf Ranking ruling. You have the major field criteria. The Masters has spoken, but we haven't yet heard from the PGA Championship, which is a month later. You have the Ryder Cup qualification period. Luke Donald seemed to suggest that LIV players won't be on. The Matt Fitzpatrick gave an interview just a couple of days ago that says he wants the best players, period, on that squad, regardless if they're affiliated with LIV. And so you have, I think, this a situation that's ripe for continued disruption. But to me, when I look back on the year that was in golf, a lot of the drama was transactional. This like will he or won't he drama of players who would defect from the PGA Tour to LIV Golf. That's not going to be the cloud that is hanging over each and every tour event in which these top players are performing. LIV's going to have their 48 guys. The PGA Tour is going to forge ahead with their 125 plus. Both of those respective tours and those players are going to be believing that their path is the right one. I think that means overall a lot of the focus will return, thankfully, to the on-course action as opposed to the rumor mill, which churned like never before in 2022.
I think that's just wishful thinking. I don't think you're paying attention. You're not reading through these lawsuits like I am. And you also glazed over the lawsuit that's been filed in the Middle District of Florida between LIV Golf and the European Tour. And there's going to be more. They're only going to continue to lay down more and more lawsuits. There's going to be more and more hearings. You mentioned the one in February in London. That's essentially going to decide the Ryder Cup fate for a lot of these European players, if that, in fact, is what they choose to do. No. I mean, what do you envision? A scenario where Jay Monahan
I'm saying it's going to be
and Greg
less
Norman are going to
contentious.
hug it out on the first tee at Augusta? Like, it's not going to happen. And as far as the transaction goes, you're kind of assuming that the exodus is finished. And it might be, but even if it's not,
it has to be. If the team format's starting in LIV in mid-February with 48 guys, like they can't have it coming and going.
I think the transaction is what is going to keep this alive, at least in the short term. When I say I'm referring to LIV Golf because it's the transaction that's made this, I think, so entertaining for your average sports fan. I'm not talking about for the average golf person, but people outside of golf who are fascinated by the idea of will he go, won't he go. That's not ending. And even if it does end, watching LIV Golf, seeing what their MO is over the last 2 years, they're just going to continue to feed that rumor mill. The idea that they can just continue to whisper in someone's ear that, oh, so-and-so is leaving after the Masters, and that person is going to write it or report it, that's just going to keep it alive.
But they can't leave after
they
the
most
season
certainly
starts.
can.
But the whole model is built on a set 48 player field.
The whole model is built on teams, 12 teams. And each team, their captain, whoever that is, Phil's teams, for example, he's going to want to get the best players for his team. And at some point, that attention is going to move back to the PGA Tour. And he's going to like what he sees out of Will Zalatoris or Sahith Theegala or any of these young players. Or Cantlay. Exactly. And the rumor mill is only going to continue. Now, I'll agree with you to a certain point that I think we get back to the competition on the field between these two tours.
That's what I'm saying. It's just going to be less.
All of the other
it's
stuff.
just going to be less.
All of the noise is not going away. Like, that's just you're just trying.
I'm not saying all the noise. I'm saying some of the noise. It's going to be a less contentious, less acrimonious year than we had in 2022.
I normally don't do this, but I was listening.
Because it can't actually top it.
I normally don't do this, but over the holidays, I was listening to kind of two separate podcasts who don't do golf. It's more kind of a general sports thing. And both of them talked about how the decision by the Masters was such a hit for the PGA Tour because it seems like the Masters was always going to side with the PGA Tour. And my take is, no, they don't have to. They don't have to do anything. This isn't their fight. It's not the USGA's fight or the PGA of America, the RNA's fight. This is the PGA Tour and the European Tour's fight against LIV Golf. That's it. It doesn't go any further.
This is why general sports media folks should not be opining about these issues because they don't.
It makes me
understand.
wonder if maybe they don't know as much about other sports. You ever think about that?
Or I mean, this is why you and I should not be opining about Georgia football breakdowns, and this is why
we
they
did
should
great.
not be talking about Live Golf,
thought it went
PGA
great.
Tour, Masters dynamics.
You don't want to break down Stetson Bennett's pocket presence any more than what we've already done?
I mean, I could. I just don't know if it would be factually correct. I think that's.
Are we going to break down
I think
Stetson or
that's the
SB4? That would be the important one.
I mean, first of all, I don't agree with that take whatsoever. It's not just the Masters.
laughed at
I guess the Nationals imperative, their prerogative to put on the absolute best tournament they can, and so excluding, I think it would have been like 16 players from the field because of some.
They were never going to do that.
From vendetta, just was not going to happen. If anything, it makes the 4 major championships bigger. It makes them better. It's the 4 times guaranteed that we are going to have the best players in the world all duking out. I will be curious along these same lines. I'm talking about a less contentious 2023. I will be curious to see, Rex, if the battle lines become clear. Like if it's PGA Tour versus Live. Like, will we have separate leaderboards for how those particular players are doing? Are we going to be comparing and contrasting? Because you think about the Open Championship, right? When they didn't go quite head to head. It was Cam Smith who hunted down Roy McIlroy on the final day. But there was this undercurrent of Cam Smith. It was widely reported at that point that he's expected to join Live coming soon. So it was like Roy McIlroy in the white cap versus Cam Smith in this dark cloud hovering over him, and it ended up being Cam Smith bolting for Live Golf shortly thereafter. Like, will that play out at the major championships? That's something to be determined. If something tells me there's going to be a whole lot of woofing on both of those sides if a player on their respective tour wins.
My biggest surprise is going to be Sahith. We just talked about him a little bit, and I feel like he has the look
good
of
or
that.
bad? Is he good or bad?
Good. I think he finally sort of takes that next step, which isn't going to be a huge step, just between winning, being the consistent player that we've already seen, in his first year on the PGA Tour. And I just think you factor in the personality and sort of that fan appeal that he's brought. He's going to be a Pip darling for a long time as long as he stays healthy. And I know he's had some wrist issues, but I just think he has the package when you look at, and I would make the same argument for Willie Z. As long as he stays healthy, he has the entire package. Those two are the players. And I
don't think Willie Z would be a surprise. Why would he be a surprise?
No. I'm kind of factoring them in as far as having the complete package. Where and look, I have my opinion on Cameron Young has changed to a degree after watching him at the Hero a little bit and trying to get to know him a little bit better. I still don't think he's a wonderful player. He has the ability to be a special player on the PGA Tour. Personality-wise, he doesn't bring much to the table. And look, you could say that about a lot of players on the PGA Tour. Dustin Johnson made a lot of money in his career being a really good player who didn't show much personality when it came to the media or the press. And you can be that player. That's fine. Vijay Singh made a lot of money doing it that way. But if you decide to go the Tom Kim route or the Willie Z route, or in this particular case, Sahith route, you're going to make so much more money and you're going to make so many more fans. And I just think it's so much easier for the PGA Tour to take these players and to make their product better, as opposed to if you're a Cameron Young and all you want to do is be a golf robot.
It is difficult. So when we do these biggest surprises, like I think it's easy to go.
I don't want to pile on Cameron Young, wonderful player.
But
please
like
don't. Please don't at me.
It's easy to say like, oh, this guy's gonna have a big year. He's gonna win a handful of times. He might win a major championship. Like, there's only so many tournaments, and if every player is moving up, like, it's just the inverse is going to happen as well. Like, players need to drop down. There doesn't seem, Rex, to be like obvious candidates for regression. Like, to me, Louis Oosthuizen at the end of 2021 was such an obvious one. We didn't even know at that point that he was headed to Live Golf, but he had a chance to win 3 major championships. He was approaching 40 years old. Like, it just seemed like he was going to backtrack in 2022, and of course, he did. He had some injury issues and disappeared on Live Golf as well. Like, to you, when you look at the top 10, top 25 in the world ranking, like, where are you looking for guys who could actually take a step back? Because they all seem like they're between 25 and 33, like in the prime of their career, trending upward. There's no real fallback candidates, in my opinion.
Well, and this is going to be largely injury driven, will it not be? I mean, certainly we spoke for 10 minutes about Will Zalatoris, and both of us put the same caveat that, yes, he is due to have another special season if he comes back healthy. Now, according to your crack reporting, he's going to be fine and he's going to be 100%. And he's never been more healthy. You could probably make the same argument about Sahith. And as I pointed out, I mean, he's had wrist issues since I think his early days in college, if I remember you telling me that correctly.
He had surgery, yeah.
And it doesn't get easier. It's not as though being a PGA Tour player is a healthy lifestyle as far as how you take care of your body and how you expect to recover. It's not an easy job physically, and I think it's going to take a toll and it's going to wear you down. And you could probably, certainly we saw Scotty Scheffler seem to be dealing with some nagging injuries towards the end of the year. Whatever happens.
Hemorrhoids.
Besides that I had actually forgot about that. I wish I remembered that. I conveniently put that out of my mind. I would argue that as long as these players stay healthy, it is hard to find someone who's going to regress. But it's not hard to imagine a scenario where Will struggles again with his back and has to take some time off. Or you can see Tony Finau, who's dealt with some injuries.
He's your player of the year, for God's sake. You're not all of a sudden you're going to put him on a deathbed?
No, with injury. I mean, look, let's say he gets excited about a hole-in-one during the par 3 contest again at Augusta and turns the ankle. Ugh, it gives me the cringes.
He's still top 10 that week. That would get him massive world ranking points.
Don't want it to happen, but it certainly happened. What is going to be your defining moment of the year?
Rex, to me, and I don't feel great about it, I must say. But I do think...
Way to lean in and sell that take of yours. Well, I don't feel good about this.
I do think it will be a U.S. Ryder Cup victory. I do actually think this is going to be closer than a lot of people anticipate. Like the European side obviously is undergoing a full makeover with the old guard finally pushed aside, unless for some reason Matt Fitzpatrick gets his way and all of a sudden you have Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood, Sergio Garcia and the like, all on that European side. It's hard to imagine that would be the case. But I think if the Americans are actually going to win for the first time in 30 years, this is going to be the squad that does it. They're completely loaded. I think it's going to be uber competitive just to make that 12-man roster for the one that heads over to Marco Simone. I think this is a squad that's hungry. We saw that at the President's Cup where even though they had somewhat of a decisive lead heading into Sunday singles, like all those guys were pissed off and because this is a President's Cup that they wanted to set records and completely dominate and maybe even win on Saturday, and it didn't turn out that way whatsoever. The European venue isn't going to be, I think, as decisive of a home course advantage as we saw potentially at Le Golf National, where it's really claustrophobic. Marco Simone is a much more wide open golf course, leans into the bombers, of which the Americans are going to have many. So I think all those factors combined, especially with the unproven back end that the European side is going to have, I think leads me to believe that it's going to touch off a pretty cathartic victory celebration for the Americans.
I went Ryder Cup as well. I wasn't as bold as you and predicted a U.S. win because I can see now why you're not so sure about this. Simply because it's been the better part of 3 damn decades since the U.S. team won the Ryder Cup.
1993.
Yeah, 3 decades since the U.S. team won a Ryder Cup in Europe. 3 decades.
They have to do it eventually.
Like, look, I know these are strange times, and these teams are going through a lot of upheaval on both sides, and you and I could probably do an hour-long podcast just on the idea of how the dynamics of live golf, how it's going to impact the European team going forward, and how it's going to impact the U.S. team going forward. I don't think this year's Ryder Cup is nearly as clear-cut as last year's President's Cup. Because you could look at that President's Cup international team and be like, oh, they got destroyed. Like, poor Trevor. He went into this thinking he was going to have a much different team than what he ended up with, and it was closer than we thought. I can't really wrap my mind around exactly how this is going to play out for the Europeans because they lost some players that probably weren't going to make the team anyway, or if they did, they probably shouldn't be on the team anyway. But they also lost some of the heart and soul of that team, you could argue. They lost something that made that team special over the decades. Now, I don't know if Henrik Stenson was going to be a good captain or not. My guess is Luke Donald will be just as fine in the job. But the dynamics between how the players who have left the game is going to impact this, which is always the Ryder Cup. Like, this one was easy. We're always going to sit and talk about the Ryder Cup because it always seems to make a difference. You're right. I feel like it's leaning in the Americans' direction because of all the things you pointed out. If you look at the U.S. team, really the last 2 years, the Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits and the President's Cup at Quail Hollow, I mean, this team's stacked. Seems like generationally we're in a the U.S. is in a very, very good spot. $5. Start the year with a $5 fine.
Thank you.
so
It's
tough.
going right to the smoker fund. I mean, I'm
Cha-ching.
certainly with you that the European side lost a lot of institutional knowledge, but that's the point of having a captain. That's the point of having vice captains, guys who have been there and done that. You still have Roy McIlroy, John Rahm at the forefront of this movement. You still have players like Tommy Fleetwood and Terrell Hatton and Matt Fitzpatrick and Victor Hovland, who, if they don't have potentially the best memories in the Ryder Cup, particularly a player who was on that side at Whistling Straits, they at least have some experience. It's not going to be totally totally new to them in this arena in a home Ryder Cup. I think it's going to be very competitive. I think it's going to be entertaining. It is going to be the tournament of the year, certainly the one that, as we sit here on January 3rd, I am most looking forward to watching and covering. Now, Rex, we also on golfchannel.com have major winner predictions. This is dropping on Wednesday on golfchannel.com. If you don't want this spoiler alert, just fast forward to the barbecue discussion at the end of this podcast. But we're going to rifle through these a little bit quickly, not just because we never get these right, but also because my hand is cramping from holding this mic. Rex, who do you have winning the Masters tournament in 2020?
I don't. I'm going to go ahead and do the same footnote you did, and then come out here just scolding hot. I don't feel good about any of these picks. Just because trying to pick a winner.
I actually feel great about my 4 picks, which means they're just going to be wholly inaccurate.
Don't feel good about any of them. The Masters, I'm going to be the total homer here. Roy McIlroy gets it done.
Of course. Yeah,
that's right. He gets it done. He completes the career Grand Slam. He finally gets the green jacket. There's a lot of tears on the green when he
yours and maybe just a few.
Everybody, like me and Jerry McIlroy are just going to be hugging each other out. It's going to be such an emotional day. I think when you look at what he did last year, both on and off the golf course, we've talked about this a lot. I feel like he's in such a good spot now. And I can just imagine a scenario, and this is probably more heart than head talking, but imagine a scenario where you had Rory and Cam Smith going head-to-head, coming down the stretch. I mean, you can't imagine a more fitting scenario for the first major of the year with everything that's going on in golf. I like Rory.
If Roy starts with a round in the 60s, something he hasn't done,
didn't work out well,
all but just a handful of times in his Masters career, I'm with you. I think it could be the year that Roy wins. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the amount of pressure that he experiences is only ratcheting up over the years. You mentioned Cameron Smith. That is my Masters champion in 2023. I think it would be obviously delicious. Would love to write it, and it certainly is not inconceivable considering what we've seen from Cameron Smith, who's been a fixture at the top of the Masters leaderboards over the past couple years. You look at his combination of elite iron play, he was a top 5 player on the PGA Tour in strokes gained approach last year, and you combine that with what to me is the most lethal short game in the entire world, with not just the chipping and pitching, but couple that with his scrambling ability and putting as well. That's like the perfect golfer for Augusta National and the challenges that you're going to have. And so Cameron Smith is my Masters champion. Just flipping ahead real quick to the PGA, that's where I think Roy McIlroy is going to win his major championship, get off the schneid since 2014. It might not be the major, Rex, that he covets the most, but as Roy himself said, he is kind of adopting the mindset that he's starting at zero. Right? This is a clean slate. It's been so long since he's won a major championship. It's kind of fresh. He's hungry to go for his first. I think it's also something of a homecoming, not just for Roy, but for myself as well. Roy's wife's parents are from Western New York. I'm very much looking forward to the beers with you and my dad on his back patio just 10 minutes from Oak Hill.
I already talked about this. Will Zalatoris is going to win. He's going to beat Justin Thomas. Moving on, the bigger part, as you pointed out, it's a home game for you. You're going back to the roots. And I think we had a conversation about, what's your onstage rapper name? Didn't we come up with it? Oh, DJ Scary Mouse.
Yes, we do. We do need to find the buried mixtapes.
Apparently, there's mixtapes in your mom's house. Apparently, you could spin it.
Yep.
I mean,
cassettes are making a comeback in 2023. Fortunately, I will be able to dig up those mixtapes for us, and we can drop that pod.
Is that Tuesday night?
In late May, on Tuesday night? Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah. All right. Tuesday night concert at Lav's house. Everyone's invited. It's going to be our big first gathering. I'm sure his mom and dad.
Viewer discretion advised. Parental advisory on that one for sure. But I think that is going to be a very interesting major, Rex, because as someone who grew up in Western New York, about 45 minutes from Oak Hill, it can be beautiful. It could be snowing. It could be 45 and rainy. And so I do think that the conditions are going to prove very favorable for bombers. And so when you think of that, it's Rory, it's John Rahm, it's Tony Finau, it's guys who can absolutely pound the golf ball. That's going to be a very interesting one weather-wise, but the beers will be delicious regardless. How about the U.S. Open? I believe you picked Tony Finau for that one, if memory serves.
No, you're incorrect. I picked John Rahm for that one simply because, again, we don't know anything. We know very little about LACC North. It's supposed to be a very good layout, but with that lack of information, I just kind of picked a guy, number one, that seems to play really, really well in Southern California. Of course, John Rahm won his only major at the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. He's played well at Riviera, which is kind of, again, similar grasses, similar climate, similar kind of atmosphere. And I just feel like John's due. I mean, John finished this season consistent, as you pointed out earlier in the podcast. And I feel like, the major game that he showed at Torrey Pines, and he has shown it before, it surfaces again. And I feel like this is a good opportunity for him.
If Xander Schauffele is going to be my player of the year in 2023,
got to win a major.
I think he is going to win his major championship. This is a player who's traditionally, he's performed well in every major championship, but traditionally he has performed the best in the U.S. Open. I think that's a product of his all-around completeness and certainly his short game. I think L.A. North's relative unfamiliarity should be beneficial to a guy who grew up in Southern California. He's arguably the most complete player in the world, and this is the major that best rewards that particular set of skills. So I do think X gets it done in the U.S. Open. You picked John Rahm for the U.S. Open, Rex. I picked John Rahm for the Open Championship. Last year, I actually picked John Rahm. He was going to have a top 5 finish in every single major in 2022, and yet he did not have a single one. This is why I think it's so stupid that we're even doing this. But to me, I think it's such an aberration that occurred. He's way too determined. He's way too talented to have another pedestrian major season. He's really getting the hang of Open Championship golf. He's performed exceedingly well over the last couple editions, and so I do think he gets major number 2 at Royal Liverpool.
I may have to revisit that U.S. Open pick because somehow Max Homa just sort of dropped into my mind, and I'm thinking to myself,
like zero top 10s in his career in major championships. Max is going to have to improve that if he wants to take the next step.
He does have to improve that, and I think he will when you look at what he did. Certainly, I would point to the President's Cup where he finally played in sort of that first team event and just completely excelled and learned so much about himself. And players talk about this all the time, just the idea of getting in that cauldron, even at a President's Cup as compared to a Ryder Cup, but getting in the cauldron and feeling it and producing, it gives you so much confidence going forward. And can you imagine how cool that story would be? Max Homa winning a major championship in LA.
Look, that's a logical progression, right? Like he's taken.
I mean, that's just sentimental LA nonsense,
great
right?
Steps each of the last couple of years, whether it was winning at Riviera and then this year he wins a couple of times and then he plays in the President's Cup. To me, Max Homa 2023, a great step would be finally getting some major contention under his belt with the idea that in 2024, with that sort of seasoning, he's ready to capture one of his own. But I'm with you. I'm a huge fan of Max Homa, the player, perhaps the best swing in all of golf. But also Max Homa, the person I believe our boy Brendan Quinn of The Athletic named him as the male player of the year in golf for everything that it brings, not just with golf, but also outside of it.
I don't know about that one. I think Tiger and Rory, and we can point to a couple of other people.
Hey, I didn't write it.
Brendan Quinn. That's kind of out there. I already talked about the Open Championship, which will be at Royal Liverpool. It would be so cool if Tiger Woods were somehow to resurrect the ghost from 06, but that doesn't seem likely to happen. So I went with Morikawa, which now that I've said it out loud, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. These are so stupid. Who do you pick?
I picked John Rahm.
Okay. Of course you did. All right. Ryder Cup, you were very specific. The U.S. wins? Is that the end of your story?
Yes, U.S. wins by like a point or two. I think it's going to be exceedingly close. Who do you got?
I actually didn't pick a winner, which leads me to believe that there's an editor who's going to be calling me very, very quickly because because I don't think I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. I think it's going to be much, much closer.
You just don't want to get shipnucked. You don't want to get called out.
I really
want to get called out in the winner's press conference.
I really do not want to do that. And I'm more interested in what's going on around each team. Like that to me fascinates me a little bit more. I'm interested to see what kind of captain Zach Johnson's
people
going to
want
be.
picks.
Luke Donald.
People want picks.
I mean, the U.S. team hasn't done it in 3 decades. So if you're going to push me, I'm going to say Europe. I mean, you are what your record says you are, and for 3 damn decades, as I've said twice now, I don't even know if are they going to have to bleep that out.
We're going to have to find out. New year, new you. Rex Hoggard's vulgar, profane rants on the Golf Channel podcast with Rex and Lav.
So if you're going to push me, I'm going to pick Europe, simply because, again, 3 decades. They haven't done it since Tom Watson was a captain, and not the time when he was a captain. They did a really bad job in Scotland the time before that in England.
Just scorching hot takes. Rex picks Europe to win the Ryder Cup, thus denigrating a dominant, potentially most stacked American team.
U.S. team's coming after me.
As well as Colin Morikawa winning a major, but also dropping at least 14 places in the world ranking.
I don't think that happened.
Those are takes that can just not be repeated. Rex, you did not get a Blackstone for Christmas, much to your chagrin, but you did say you cooked up the best ribs of your life. This is a big week, Rex. Final week, regular season of the NFL season, as well as Georgia's national championship game on Monday, which I'm sure you'll be tuned in for, perhaps not as intently as I am. What do you got on the grill? What have you been doing recently over the pit?
The ribs that I talked about, yes, I cooked them as good as I can possibly cook them. Now, that being said, for those of you who are thinking about trying to experiment with different rubs, there's a really good rub from Meat Church called the Voodoo Rub, and that in and of itself, it's got a bite to it. But then you factor in, I also got some hot barbecue sauce from Southern Soul. Nope, too hot, hot,
folks. You can't double dip. You gotta choose one or the other.
Too hot. So I just happen to have this Southern Soul dust on my desk. I'm going to go with that next time. 3-2-1 classic. It was very, very easy. And this time of year makes me so sad because I know the days are numbered now of me just sitting on my back porch on a Saturday, smoking ribs, watching football, drinking an IPA. And like, what do I do with myself after that?
I think I've mentioned a couple times that we're putting in an outdoor kitchen at the house, and the roof structure that we're putting over it has been delayed and permitting a little bit, and so it looks like, Rex, that the estimated time that this is going to be done is right around the Super Bowl, if not a little bit later, which of course could not come at a worse time because this is the time that you actually want to sit down all weekend, drink, have some folks over, and cook up some barbecue. And we're going to get to a point and a time of year when there's just nothing on TV. There's nothing to do. You kind of feel like a little bit of a degenerate or a lowlife or a bum just sitting there for hours on end, drinking in the backyard. So I don't know if you need to have like a beer Olympics. I don't know if you need to start getting deeper into the cornhole game. But once the outdoor kitchen is finalized, I'm sure we'll somehow be putting it to good use. I have had, Rex, an epic week and a half or so.
I don't know how you're not in a meat coma, man.
Seriously.
I mean, do you guys just ever just like have a salad for dinner at your house?
No. For dinner? No. For lunch? For lunch, sure. I tend to ramp up. Like I'll start with Cheerios for breakfast. I'll ramp up to a salad with some chicken.
Are you a 6-year-old? Do you and Cam have the exact same breakfast?
And then it's just completely just over the top for dinner. So I did a smoked and seared duck breast a couple of days ago, which was absolutely insane. On Sunday, I believe it was, New Year's Day. First, I smoked chicken wings, leading directly into a smoked prime rib for dinner. I certainly rang in the new year the least healthy way possible with a couple of Duval Lights as well. So it has been an absolutely epic week and a half or so. That's what you're supposed to do in the holidays, isn't it? Spend time with your loved ones as well as your smokers.
How's your cholesterol? You still good? I'm a little worried.
Don't know if you don't test.
Might want to get tested. I'm just throwing it out there. May want to try it.
Yep.
What is a Duval Light? I don't even know what that is. What's a Duval Light?
That is Bold City Brewery. It's a local brewery here in Jacksonville. They make it specifically. It's like a Jaguars beer. You can only buy it at Daly's, which is the name of a gas station here in the Nocatee area. It is delicious. I actually called, and it is $150 for a half keg. And so that's what we'll be putting in the kegerator outside. It is delicious during Players Week, assuming that this godforsaken outdoor kitchen is actually completed. Look forward to having you over, and we can enjoy some Duval Lights together. Now, folks,
can we get a preview of DJ Scary Mouse at that Players Gathering, or no? Is that
sure,
gonna be,
we can.
Is that only?
We can have a listening party if you want. I'll make sure to bring the boombox. Thank you guys for listening to this first Golf Channel podcast with Rex and Laugh of the new year. Hope you enjoyed it. Go Georgia! Defending national championships, going for back-to-back. on Monday. We'll have a full recap in next week's pod, as well as, we'll probably talk about Kapalua as well. But thank you guys for listening. Talk to you next week.